Recently, Maria and I had conversations with our community of artists who have taken our language of color and language of design course. And the issue of sanding the work to subtract came up. And there was a flurry of questions and comments around this activity. So I thought today, for nuts and bolts, I would demonstrate what it is to use sanding as a means for subtraction. It's a way that I like to work because I like to change things in that fashion. So I've got a painting that I'm working on now. It's back there in the back part of my property against the tool shed. And we're going to go back there with my sander and demonstrate what's involved and why I do it. Welcome to my sanding space here at the tool shed in the backyard. The first thing to say is that if one's going to do this, one should have a variety of sandpaper from fine, very fine, to rough. And one can sand just a portion of the piece, or much of it, or all of it, depending. A lot of times if I'm kind of in the middle, and I just got a whole lot going on, I'll just sand everything back and kick it back. Now, I've got a piece of fine sandpaper just to show you could do this by hand. Some people just want to go really subtly, and if you do it by hand, you can see that you have a little more control. And this is a very fine piece of sandpaper, and just lifting out that blue a little bit.
What grit is it? Can you tell me?
Yes, sure. This is 150. And they come even finer than that, but I just wanted to show you.
So then, smaller numbers are finer or bigger numbers are finer? How does it work?
That's a good question. The bigger numbers are finer and the smaller numbers. And so I have this orbital sander that I use quite a bit. You can see it's seen better days. And right now you can see it's been used. This still has a fair amount of use left in it. And this is a little rougher, so I have them from fine to rough. This is kind of a in between. It's not the finest, but it's not the roughest. So we'll probably do a little editing. Yes, cut this and beginning, middle, end kind of thing. So I really want to deal with this area here, and that's
should you be wearing a mask for this?
Good question. I don't, in this case, anticipate creating a whole lot of dust, so I'm not going to bother, but I think to play it safe, it would probably be a good idea.
Okay.
So, the other thing is you can control how much by the pressure. You don't have to exert a lot of pressure, and some people like to tape off if they want to do an area that's very fine. You can see when that tape's getting frayed. I've gotten pretty good in here. I just tilt this a little bit sometimes, and I'll just come in here and I can control it this way by tilting.
Okay, I can film, but you can't talk over it. So
all right, so I'm just going to sand now for a while. My idea is to really take this back a lot because I just got to figure out what to do with it. So here we go. That's with this grit. If I wanted to really make quick work of it, I would get to a heavier grit.
Do you want to show us that?
I can do it in one area. But I do like this because I can control it better as to how I'm lifting out these colors and so on. But just for example, this is going to be, that one, by the way, for numbers was, what was that, 120? And this one is 40. It's a big difference. Let's see. So 120 is fine. This is heavy grit. I'll work on this area and see how much faster it can probably go. I want to make a comment here quickly. The more layers you have of color, and in this case collage, the better. Otherwise you're going to go right back to the support. The support, which is why I like the fine better. All right, let me just do this for a while and we can fast forward. stopping for a minute just to point out yet another thing, and that is one of the reasons I like sanding. If I've got a lot of information going on or it's just too busy, yes, it takes it way back, but it unifies. Now look how much quieter all this is. I could come in with glazes or other colors, and it really quiets things down, and I rather like that aspect of it. Little traces come up. Also very important that you step back from time to time. If you're just sanding in sort of a myopic way, you don't really get a chance to see what you need to do next or ease off or bear down. So I like to stop and step back sometimes and see what's going on. It looks more unified now. It's less chunky. Its edges have softened. History has happened here that you can't mix those colors. You can't mix them. They have to happen in this regard and no other way, or this fashion rather. So yeah, I'm pleased for now. We'll see where it goes. I ended up sanding about 90% of this. I thought I was going to do just one section. Before you know it, I felt other areas had to get changed. And I'm really glad I did. One of the things I personally enjoy in how I work this way, it reminds me of the old walls in Europe that I've taken pictures of for so many years, the layers, brick, mortar, paint, graffiti, you name it. And you can't mix these colors. You can't get this effect any other way, or at least I can't. And I have to take a leap of faith that I'm going to lose certain areas completely. It has to be dealt with, but I've gained quite a bit. And edges have softened. Some of the kind of graphic quality that I had before, which I was beginning to like less and less, has muted and quieted down. So I'm pleased right now. Now I've got lots to think about as to where to go next and how to develop what I've seen. But I think it's overall actually more unified. All the parts are playing more nicely together, in other words. So consider it. Many ways to do it. But if it's something that you've sort of been afraid of, use work that you don't really care about that much and just experiment and see how it goes.
Can you just briefly talk, I'm sorry, before you finish, you work on a wooden panel.
Yes, I do.
And we did have questions from artists who work on canvas or paper or other supports. How does that work then?
Paper is no problem. You can just put it up against the wall and go for it. Canvas stretched is more difficult. You would have to have some kind of support underneath that canvas. You could have to provide some kind of wooden support because you're going to be pushing that canvas in and it just doesn't work as well. Some people, by the way, work on canvas tacked to the wall, and that way you can do this quite easily.
Yeah. And you could send paper? I didn't know you could send paper.
Oh yes, sandpaper. A lot of this is paper. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, but to sand, let's say, a drawing on paper. Sure. You wouldn't take the electrical sander to it, just a hand sander.
Yeah,
paper,
this is where you want to be more finessed and use your hand and fine paper and build it up slowly. Mm-hmm. So it's add, subtract, add, subtract. Now that I've subtracted, I'll add. So any other questions, Maria, or is that pretty much covered?
I think that covers it, but if we did forget anything, please ask your questions in the comments and Mark will answer them.
Sure. I think the key here is to be willing to let go and have an adventure and see what happens. Okay, enjoy.